right now I'm going to recognize Nathan Earl. I mentioned him a while ago. He is a former candidate for State House. Got a respectable percentage of the vote. It's a three-way race. And hopefully he'll get back into politics officially someday, but he's involved in the grassroots and a great good friend. Glad that he's going to be here. Nathan, if you'd like to take a minute to speak a couple words from your heart, and he's going to read a couple of letters of support. One from Bob McLean and one from Stephen Brown. And Bob McLean wanted to be here. He just had a previous commitment. He has done a tremendous job. For those of you that don't know Bob McLean, host of the Bob McLean Show, probably no one here, no one in South Carolina doesn't know who Bob McLean is. He is to the upstate, I guess, what Bill Frady is to the Midlands down there. We are fortunate to have Bob McLean in the upstate of South Carolina. He is a true gentleman. I've never seen a person more respectful of his callers. He cares about his viewers. He doesn't just use them for his own personal gain. We're sorry Bob could not be here, but he's written us a letter of support. He did a lot to help promote us and endorse us today. And Stephen Brown, you may know, former Greenville County GOP chair, and also ran for state GOP chair as well this year. So, Nathan, come on up, say a word with this letter.
I think you don't get to a respectable percentage of the vote until you get about where Jan Williams got in the city election, but I appreciate that, Jake. Dr. Beam, is yours an autographed copy?
It is.
Okay, good. Mine is too. See, I got my little, my green Jim DeMint signature here. But you know, as conservatives, as Republicans, we don't get all squishy in the middle over our candidates. You know, we don't faint. We might faint today because of the heat, but as far as the reason for getting behind our candidates is because we agree with their principles, and I think that this is pretty typical of Republicans. You know, it's only us diehard, willing to stand in the heat kind of types that are actually going to get out here. But I don't think I would be discouraged by that. And the other thing I would say is that David mentioned earlier the school choice. The school choice vote in the House. There are a whole bunch of people that would be here today if they weren't up in Spartanburg calling out Doug Brannon and Rita Allison and all the other rhinos that stood against, in our state legislature, against a very key and important part of putting our country back on the right track in that school choice legislation. Jim DeMint understands that problem that we have with our public schools, and that's one reason very few presidential candidates are willing to speak out on an issue like that. And he's done that. He's made videos. There's no question about where he stands. And I'd say this too. Another reason I feel comfortable supporting Jim DeMint is that he's not going to change his colors. This is a sticker from when he ran in Congress in 1998, and you see it's the same stuff. You don't get anything new with Jim DeMint. You get solid, steady leadership, and I would also say courteous leadership. I think that the first time I've ever heard Jim DeMint called, what was that word you said? Something about aggressive or combative, something like that. You know, Jim DeMint is going to take our opponents, the enemies of our Constitution, to the mat, but he does it in a I think, very courteous and polite, respectful way, recognizing the humanity of the people that we're fighting against. I mean, we are fighting an ideological and a cultural war, but we have to be the ones that will respect our enemies and even love our enemies as Jesus told us to do. And I think Jim DeMint is a perfect example of that. I think that's one reason he is so widely respected. Let me start with reading this letter from former Congressman Brown, and then I'll read the one from Bob McLean. So this is Congressman Brown. Consistent with my repeated public statements, I continue to encourage conservative leaders across South Carolina to remain uncommitted in regard to the presidential primary. Excuse me, this is not former Congressman. This is
He's a Greenville attorney, former.
Okay, sorry about that. Wrong, Stephen
former
Brown.
Greenville GOP chair and former candidate for state GOP chair.
This is the attorney that is leading the party's fight for registration by party in the federal court system right now. He's our lead attorney on that. And one reason that lawsuit is so important is because if you'll remember, the last presidential election cycle was John McCain. I think one reason we got John McCain is because we have a lot of Democrats that like to come and vote in our primary elections. Until that law is changed, we can't get our good members of the House and Senate in South Carolina to change the law, then the only resort is to the federal court system, and that's what Stephen Brown is. So I apologize for the reference there, but Stephen Brown says that he continues to urge conservative leaders to remain uncommitted until we get the final word on what Senator DeMint will do. He is certainly my first choice for a number of reasons. Basically, it breaks down to that I believe we need a conservative leader with a solid track record on the fiscal and social issues who's not afraid to challenge the Republican Party leadership. In my opinion, another establishment Republican presidential candidate is not what our country needs. I believe that Senator DeMint would focus the race on the issues critical to our nation's future and defeat Obama next year. However, even if Senator DeMint chooses not to run, I believe we benefit most if conservative leadership in this state waits to commit to another candidate. It is my desire to see a very large portion of that conservative leadership unified behind one game-changing candidate like Jim DeMint. We cannot afford to have our conservative base split in several directions between multiple candidates perceived as conservative, only to have the moderate establishment candidate win a plurality in South Carolina and go on to win the Republican nomination. And there's a very real danger of that happening again. If I think a lot of us that were initially enthusiastic about Mitt Romney in the last election, there's a lot more information that's come out about him. I believe he's gotten Al Gore's endorsement recently on the climate change issue, and and I'm just telling you guys, telling you, Jim DeMint, if you don't get in this race, Mitt Romney is right behind you in the South Carolina primary poll, and that's what you're going to give us if you're not willing to step up to the plate, as Dr. Beam mentioned, and throw your hat in the ring. And if you choose to lead, we will follow. We won't follow you blindly, like a bunch of we're not members of the mob, but we will follow you. And I believe the one reason we will follow Jim DeMint is because of our ability to trust him. Especially around here, we know Jim. We have seen him at work. We have watched him face issue after issue and not change his stripes. So with that, let me read this letter in support of Jim DeMint for president from Bob McLean. I was talking to Bob on the radio yesterday, and one observation that he made was that if you want a stark contrast between the president that we've got now and the Republican nominee, you can't look anywhere, you can't find a starker contrast than between Barack Obama and Jim DeMint. As I said earlier, Jim DeMint is self-effacing, he is courteous, he doesn't think too highly of himself. And on the other hand, you've got a narcissistic personality that has to have his nose in front of the camera all the time, and it's just a completely different attitude about what it means to be president of this great country. So here's Bob McLean's letter. It has been my privilege to know Senator DeMint for nearly a decade. During his service as United States Congressman and in the Senate, he has consistently been a stalwart spokesman for traditional conservative values. We now face the most crucial election in this nation's history. The record is clear. Whenever the GOP runs a truly conservative candidate, they win. This is not a time for big tent Republicanism. For the GOP to run another country club Republican who is essentially for the same things as our opponents is a surefire way to lose. No matter the issue, right to life, smaller government, reduced spending, the war on terror, gay issues, or illegal immigration. I love you, Jim DeMint! Jim DeMint has always been there to fight for traditional American values. His constant opposition to the progressive socialist agenda has been an inspiration to those who treasure the things that have made the United States the greatest nation in the history of the planet. This is a time that cries out for a conservative voice, a leader and a statesman to rally around. For all these reasons and more, I strongly support the effort to draft Jim DeMint to run for President of the United States. His courage and fortitude in the face of liberal opposition has been an inspiration to people all over the country. I encourage Senator DeMint to enter the race and give the Republican Party a conservative leader around whom we can begin the effort to take back America. God bless you all for being here today, and may God bless the United States of America. Sincerely, Bob McLean. I guess I just finished by telling you what I told Jim's Greenville area representative, Danielle Gibbs, the other night at a meeting. I have been praying for several years a specific prayer for our country, and it is this. I've been praying, God, would you remove the wicked from over us? We have a lot of people who are wicked, and they are ruling over us right now. But God is able to bring them down. The Bible says He's able to bring down the proud and to raise up the humble. And at the same time, I pray, God, would you raise up righteous leaders? And I looked at Danielle and I said, I could tell by the look in her face that she couldn't argue with me. I said, God, when I pray that prayer, for some reason, Jim DeMint's face always seems to pop up. And I will tell you that I think that we are due for not just some conservative leadership, not just for some fiscally responsible leadership, not just for some brave leadership, but for some righteous leadership. And I believe that more than anything else is what Jim DeMint has to offer. Thank you.